the Yep Yeah Yes podcast with Marissa and Tamika.
Look, I'd rather be a gambler than a weedhead.
I walked in, sat down, had to leave, and violently vomited.
I'm not going down that hole. I'm not. Don't even try me. Not today, Satan. Not today. I value my friendship.
Oh,
You're the cream, and the coffee is life. You bring cream to my life.
Oh, I'm not sure.
Once a week for an hour.
Hey, homie.
Hey, once a week for an hour, you bring cream to my coffee.
Once a week.
Although I prefer tea, but
How's your cough?
I still got it, but it's fine.
What's so funny is as you were playing this intro, 1,000 things just ran through my mind. So you're gonna have to excuse me 1 second. I gotta write some notes.
Okay.
Because I'd be forgetting stuff.
Well, while you're doing that, I do want to give a shout out to all the people that have left comments on our YouTube page, people that have donated to us. We appreciate the support. We're just a struggling little old podcast. Two friends that sat in Marissa's kitchen years ago and was like, "Hey, yeah, we should do this."
Yeah.
Just because we like to talk to each other and it'd be fun. We've been wanting to kind of like years and years ago. We were like, we should do a reality show.
Mm-hmm.
But this is like the second best thing. I don't think I would be good for a reality show because there's going to be people that like you and the people that hate you. And I don't want the people that like you to hate me and vice versa.
Oh, yeah.
Like there's always somebody to hate and there's always somebody to love.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be hated by the people that love you. And I don't want the people that love me to hate
you. Just want to be hated by the people that hate both of us.
Yeah, if you're going to hate, just hate us. No, I don't want hate at all.
I don't want hate at all.
And then mofos be like, did she ever go to a dentist? They start digging up pictures all of a sudden my elementary school. You know what I'm saying? My teeth, whatever. So, I see her hearing aid. She didn't get a good shade. Like all of a sudden, it's like they're talking about stuff. Oh, she walks with a limp. And then I'm triggered by memories of like, Tar Baby and Black Banana. And next thing you know, I'm in rehab. So this is.
Well, hold on a second. We're doing a podcast. Stop.
So this is the next best thing. I'm triggered. It's in my story. It's in my story.
It was just, and this is how we end up going off in tangents because I was just reading the snippet of Kim Kardashian talking about she just saw the Britney Spears documentary.
Oh my God, I just saw that.
And I'm like, really? We're okay, but yeah.
I thought, you know what the first thing I thought to myself?
What?
A way to make it about me again. Like, I never seen anybody make everything about her. We can save that for another show.
Okay.
But I do want to say this one thing. I just get it off my chest. So when I'm saying with the addicted to my story, so I had 2 nightmares this week about 2 living people. I'm only going to talk about the second one. So it was the first time. The second one wasn't a nightmare. It was more of, it was one of those situations where something happened to me when I was in college. Me and you have discussed it. I really don't want to talk about it, the actual incident that happened.
Okay.
But for years, I've harbored this like guilt, right? Because I never really gave it much thought. Every time I think about it, I think about like the guilt of it. You know what I mean?
Okay.
The first time in my dream where I like let the guilt go. I'm like, wait a second. Because the one thing that I can say is that when you violating a person isn't just about like I got beat up in this situation. Violating isn't just about, the physical. This person, I used to keep a journal on my computer. This person didn't like what I wrote about her. She deleted everything. So I don't have any of those memories from college where I would write down what I was feeling, what I was going through. She deleted everything because she resented that I spoke in my private thoughts about her. I never mentioned any of this stuff about her to our friends, to my mom, nobody. It was just my way to release. And she took that personally. Wasn't there a meme from that? And I took that. Oh, Michael Jordan, and I took that personally. Anyway, look at like Google Michael Jordan. I took that personally, and it's like a million memes. But anyway, it was like it wasn't about it. It wasn't. It was about me, like me venting And one of the things that I wrote was about her and her family.
Right.
But it was my personal thoughts. I didn't share them with anybody. I never had conversations about her with any
Right.
friends or our mutual friends. But because she found them, she beat me up. And she might have a different version of it or whatever. But and I just said I wasn't going to talk about it, but whatever. It's hard not to talk about talk about it without referencing this dream. But in the dream, it was the first time, like I had a fictional conversation with her. And it was the first time where I came to the revelation that like it's not my fault. And so in life, it just reminded me in life, you can't hold on to shit. You gotta let it go. Like not everything is your responsibility or your fault. Just let it go and move on. And that was over 20 years ago. So anyway, I digress. The table is
Ooh.
yours. I've cleared
It's
cleared the table.
and you are cleansed. It's so it's funny that you say talk about letting go because it's like, you know, someone said to me the other day, like, what got you that to that point? Because sometimes like somebody will like do something or say something and they're speaking like their actions were so messed up, blah 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 blah. Why are people like that? And I'm like, because it didn't happen to me, because I'm salty and I'm sensitive. I'll be like, yeah, but what happened in that person's life to get there?
Right.
So let's look at it that way for a second, because there's no way that person woke up to make your day bad. So let's and they're like, how do you get there? Well, first of all, it didn't happen to me. But secondly, you gotta let shit go. Letting stuff
Sometimes
go,
there's no
really, like
answer. There's no like you're never gonna get the answer you want. Or you're
never.
never gonna resolve things. You just gotta, I was like at peace for the first time. This shit happened in 1995, 94, 94, 95. I don't remember the exact. It was like, I remember the month. So I think it was 95. But anyway, it happened like at the end of the year. And it was like, it was a mess. It was a complete mess. And I've been holding on to that shit in my own way. But I don't
Right.
like I just had this dream and she and I are like the age we are now because I know her now. You know what I mean? Like we're not friends, but it was like
Yeah.
Facebook friends or whatever. But it was the first time like I had a conversation with her about that time. Because I remember years later, she's like, I'm glad you took responsibility and ownership and you're a woman now. And I'm like thinking about her saying that to me, and I'm like, so let me get this straight. I get beat up because of personal thoughts I shared in my journal. Not that I share with other people, not that I spread
You
it
said
around.
this to her?
No, no,
Oh,
I've been
you're
thinking it.
processing.
Yeah, and
Right,
I'm
right.
processing it. And I was just like, whatever. Maybe it was my fault. Maybe I should have told, said these certain things. You know what I mean? Referred to
Yeah.
certain people as certain things. But it was in my dream the other night where I was like, no, that's my personal thoughts.
Yeah.
I shouldn't somebody shouldn't hold me accountable for my personal thoughts. I wasn't going around spreading rumors and talking. It was just crazy. So a journal, the fact that I was able to journal years later,
Right.
amazing. But anyway, she did me a favor. Anyway, I didn't mean to hijack the show. It was just something that, you know, thought the people would like to know.
So I actually want to talk about something that's not heavy,
Okay.
but it's a trigger for some people because I feel like when you say these things, people automatically think one thing or another, and it's a very divisive thing. But I kind of want to have this conversation because I think it's important to kind of like, nobody besides you can interrupt me. So, the stream of thought can happen.
Right.
What does family planning look like to you? What's the definition of family planning? What are reproductive rights? Okay, I kind of want to break this down a little bit because what got this thought was Venezuela is actually going through an economic crisis. And part of that economic crisis is access to family planning. Now, what that also means is birth control, in all forms of birth control have become less accessible because of this economic crisis.
Right.
But before we get into that, I kind of want to have like a broad basis of what you and I think of when we think of, you have a clip and it's yellow. I apologize, orange, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it says invest in family planning and reproductive health.
Okay.
Okay.
And then start talking about it. I'll pull it up.
Yeah. So part of that is kind of like a snapshot where it says, you know, women in developing countries have an unmet need for family planning. There's barriers to contraception. So there's financial, spousal approval, parental consents, stockouts, stigma. There's also the impact of unmet need. 74 million unplanned pregnancies, 28 million unplanned births, 36 million abortions a year. So investing in family planning, spending $1 for contraceptive services, reduce the cost of pregnancy-related care by $1.47. So right there we see return on dollar. And the bottom is up there, so kind of like people can read that on their own. But I want to ask you, as an American Black woman, what does family planning look like to you?
Well, before you came up with this topic, I had a polarizing like viewpoint, and I did my own little bit of research because I didn't realize that there was a difference between family planning and natural family planning, which is like, okay, no, it is what it is. But family planning to me is what I thought it meant, and what I guess in a lot of ways it still means is a woman making a quote unquote plan on childbirth or not. And that can mean, you know, she's going to use birth control, not use birth control, be in a relationship with some partnership, not in a partnership, that kind of thing. That's what I think about family planning, making those decisions about your reproductive health. And that can, like I said, it can be I'm choosing to have a family, not choosing to have a family, how I'm going about either or, you know, fertility, birth control, whatever the case may be for your own personal experience. What about for you?
Basically the same thing, where an individual has access to plan on whether or not there will be children or no children or spacing of children. So we have like basically the same definition. But now you said something before about polarized, so natural and can you tell me what, or do you want to share that polarizing thought or no?
Well, no, I'm saying my polarizing thought was basically like it was it was more so like making just it was all about making the decision to have a family. Like that's my ignorant and not really reading up on it because I had no desire to, you know, if I can't have a family, I don't want to read about other people's decisions to have one.
Right,
And then,
right.
so, but then you chose this topic, so do my somewhat due diligence and do a little bit of research, not a ton, because you did give it to me last minute, but I'm joking, sort of. But the natural family planning, to me, from what I looked up, seemed to be more in the vein of like the pull out method, like no birth control, no drugs, no, you know, you deal with it as it comes.
Okay, so I want to talk about that, but I want to kind of like get, yes. So I want to talk about like just the idea of family planning. So with family planning, do you believe that goes hand in hand with reproductive rights?
Yeah, in a way it does. Yeah, but what do you think? Stop acting. You're not Oprah.
I would, girl, a girl can only dream. A girl can only dream. I would love to be Oprah. I would love to be Oprah. So here's the thing. So family planning and reproductive rights, I feel do and don't go hand in hand. So here's the thing. So reproductive rights means the access and the decision are based on the individual, right? Obviously, we have to mention abortion when it comes to reproductive rights, right? I'm not saying that we have to, but yes, because there are instances where that is a medical necessity. So do I believe that someone has the right to carry out a pregnancy? I think it's an individual right. When it comes to timelines, that's where we get a little fishy. I mean, 32 weeks, I don't see how that's, other than the health and well-being, obviously, yes. But just a term, that's, I don't want to get into those weeds, because it's not about, do I believe in abortion? Is abortion right? I think reproductive rights are being suffered right now in Venezuela. So here's the thing. So in Venezuela, they're having an inflation crisis. And with inflation, and here's the thing that people forget, things cost money, but it don't, more money, right? So your dollar, your peso, whatever it's called, Venezuelan money, doesn't it doesn't buy the same amount of things that it used to. But what people forget is they're not paying you more. Just because thing costs more, they don't pay you more. So if your salary is $1.40, what was the monthly minimum wage US dollars comes out to $1.14 for a month.
That's crazy.
Potatoes cost $1.50. You're making $1.14 a month on minimum wage. So I mean, so now the access to contraceptions, birth control, and not just like like IUD, condoms, all forms of birth control are now being waged out to the average person. So you can't afford it if you can find it. And then now medical help, where it's like the coil, the IUD, all that stuff. Again, it's being waged out. And are there enough doctors available now to practice? People think that just figure it out. So one of the things I kind of want to talk about when it comes to this, because I feel like the only way for people to take an interest in something is if they see how it would affect them.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a human thing. Does it make everyone wrong? Probably not, or probably it does. I don't know. So I want to kind of pose this question to people who are listening. So imagine you're your average male and you're dating. We'll leave it as a heterosexual male-female relationship, right? I'm not going to get into the weeds of everything else. You're an average male, 20, we'll say 23, because it sounds like a nice number. You're dating someone and you feel the sexual component of the relationship is important, but she cannot afford condoms. She cannot even find condoms. And she says to you, we can't have a sexual relationship because I cannot have an unplanned pregnancy. What do you do with that relationship? I want to give another example. You are a married man, married for, I don't know, 15 years. You have 3 kids. Only one of you can work because childcare, again, is very expensive. And she turns to you and says, well, we have to start now abstaining because I cannot afford to go to the doctor to get an IUD so we can have unprotected sex. I'll give you another example. You're a 33-year-old man working and you lost your job and you have 6 children, about to have your 7th, because you have not had access to birth control. Your female partner has not had access to birth control. What do? Government medical facilities, meaning like what would their equivalent be, like a Planned Parenthood, which is not just an abortion clinic, which is also a healthcare clinic. Their government healthcare clinics no longer provide free contraceptives, which is because of a turn of economy, and free medical care is no longer available. So now what do? So I kind of want to put it in kind of like that framework, because I find your average American, and I only say average American because this is where we live, right? So we can go to any convenience store. So we have, I'm not quite sure in every part of the country, so every part of the world. So here's the thing. So you can find contraceptive, meaning Plan B, means like the morning after pill, as they call. So you have unprotected sex. You take a pill, what is it, 72 hours? Within 72 hours, you take the pill and the zygote does not implant, resulting in no pregnancy. You have access to condoms, and you also have healthcare clinics where private medical, public medical, where you can have birth control, pill form, shot, patch, coil, IUD, any sort of thing you can think of, and you have access to that. So sexual relations between two people doesn't have many hindrances. Consensual sexual relationship doesn't have many hindrances when it comes to planned and unplanned pregnancy. Obviously, if we have lack of education or rural areas, obviously I'm not dumb. I know these things happen, but I'm saying your average American with a minimum wage job, even if they don't have medical health, private medical insurance, still has access to reproductive barriers when it comes to planned or unplanned pregnancies. Right?
Mhm.
So now we're going to think about somebody in another country like Venezuela, who is having a hard time economically at the moment. So if we look at that, how do we define these relationships? Who carries the burden mainly of childcare? Who carries the burden mainly of economic means for the family? So when we talk about individual pressures when it comes to family planning, this is a larger conversation than we can have today. I know that. But when we talk about reproductive rights, not just in this country, but in other countries, what do we think of? Are we afforded the luxury of being dismissive? Can we take a back seat on something like this? I don't know. I know for here in the United States, on a personal note, I know that if you have an unplanned pregnancy and you don't have the economic means, you do have government services that can help you. But I also know that comes with stigma. I know that also comes with religious ideology. So you can't have an abortion, but don't make me pay for your baby either.
Right.
I don't know what else you want me to do. If I can't have, oh, you should have thought about that before. Okay. So okay. But here I am. So now what? But now you have a country like Venezuela who now has a crisis beyond. We have an economic crisis where now people are having to choose foods between on their choice of foods they have to think about. You have do you ever there's the word like caldo. It's like soup, right? But it's not like a hearty soup. It's like the leftover water of stuff that you eat. Like usually like Latin countries, a caldo is something that like you have when you're sick, right? Like a broth, right? Like a bone broth. If
Right.
that's your main food for a week, I don't know.
I don't either. I mean, it's like when you live in this country, it's easy to be um like and it's the American way to be like I'm only concerned with what's happening with me. And it's a personal way of being. Me, Tamika, it's a state world of being, New York. We're going through this thing with the governor, and it's like they're everybody has their purpose that only serves them in their own little bubble. And so Venezuela is like thoughts and prayers, but until what's going on over there affects me directly, it's like I don't care. And I'm not saying that that's how I feel, but I mean,
Yeah.
you know, sorry,
Sorry to that country.
we trying
I
to get
get it.
$15 here. I mean, y'all decided, you know what I'm saying? Like it's the ignorance of our country and our people to feel
Yeah.
that way, but we've been so conditioned, and this is how we've thrived in this country. That's why we're where we're at because
Can,
we're go ahead.
no, go ahead.
No, I'm just gonna say this is why we thrive and where we're at because we have always put ourselves in the position to only give a shit about ourselves, and whether that's pillaging another country of the things that we need that can make our country better, to ignoring countries that have nothing to offer us. And that goes in our backyard too, like just in your own neighborhood, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Talking like, oh, they this the poor people live here, but they got a nice view. Okay, what can I get? We got to get rid of them and just
Mm-hmm.
they can figure it out. Shit, you know what I'm saying? So
Yeah,
when it
yeah.
comes to Venezuela and countries like India, you know, countries like that where the rights of women, the reproductive rights of women are pretty much
Mm-hmm.
non-existent. Like I said, unless it affects our country directly, it's like we don't give a shit.
Do you have that clip when you get a moment? Can you bring up that video clip? And this is where I want to talk about how there's something called the sphere of influence, and the United States and its sphere of influence. I think Venezuela is directly under that sphere of influence. So I want to play this, and then we can continue that train of thought.
Okay.
Desperate for food and medicine, with 2 children and 8 months pregnant, Geraldine Gonzalez decided it was time to leave Venezuela.
It had become unbearable. I'd leave the house very early to stay in line for food or even an aspirin. It was hard, very hard. So I said, this is it. Let's try our luck here.
Undernourished and anxious she'd lose the baby, she crossed illegally into Colombia after a 2-day bus ride from Caracas and reached her sister on the outskirts of Cartagena. Here she got medical help at a local public clinic. And she's not alone. The crumbling healthcare system in Venezuela is generating waves of medical refugees in Colombia, showing up at emergency rooms to receive free urgent care. Over the last 6 months, at least 350 pregnant Venezuelans have come to this clinic alone in Cartagena in search for medical assistance. And the same is happening in many other cities in Colombia, putting the public health system here under serious strain. The medical director says that uninsured Venezuelans have racked up tens of thousands of dollars in medical bills.
They usually arrive malnourished and with no prenatal exams, which means they are all high-risk pregnancy. We have an obligation to care for anyone in need, but this is a time bomb, and we can't wait for it to explode before we take action.
Cartagena's People's Defender is asking the national government to step in.
We want the government to offer refugee status to these women to better assist them. For decades, it was Colombians who looked for help in Venezuela. Now it's the other way around. It's our time to help.
Ashley Samara was born 2 weeks ago, just days after her parents arrived from Maracaibo. They live in this tiny, windowless room behind the grocery shop they attend. A single fan provides relief from the scorching heat, less than ideal conditions for a newborn, yet they say it's better than what they left behind.
Porque por lo menos aquí.
At least here we get enough food. With the little we make, we can buy enough to eat and provide the baby with basic needs.
Precarious, this family says they're just happy to be together and alive and thankful for the care they received. Alessandra Ampieti, Al Jazeera, Cartagena.
That clip was from Al Jazeera TV.
So what was so interesting about that is like you see people doing the best that they can to find refuge for their situation. And I get it. Listen, if that was happening to me, for sure. But here's the thing that ends up happening. So they're going to where do they say, Colombia, right?
Mm-hmm. Which is mind-boggling to me on a whole nother level. When I first heard that, I'm like, Colombia. Yeah, like the guy said, it's like Colombians used to go to Venezuela for help. So it's like,
well, the economic crisis right now is like,
that's like us going to Mexico for help.
Yeah,
like that would be the equivalent.
So I don't know why this popped into my head when you said that. So remember when Mexico came to help Americans for
the
Hurricane Katrina for relief? I choose to not live in any other country. I am proudly here. I know I already won the lottery by being here. And when I say this, I'm not saying like, but I just want to say this. So we can sometimes we look at our own selves and we can't help ourselves. Mexico had to help us during Hurricane Katrina. Let's not sit on this high and mighty pedestal. But what I am trying to say is, refuge as one thing gets exhausted, there's going to come a moment where Colombia cannot help anymore. And they're going to say, you're going to have to go somewhere else.
Right.
So as these women travel, one of the things, so America is one of the very few countries that does birthright citizenship, which is why it's so important when people have babies here, if they're not US citizens, because what ends up happening is now their baby's a US citizen and that child has rights here in America and rights that they would not have in their parents' home country. So what ends up happening is it gives a longer time frame for the caregivers to have to go back. So now they have a leg to stand on, so to speak.
Well, I want to say with that, this is one of the reasons why it's important when you choose which elected officials you elect, because there are certain members of our government, local and federal, that want to do away with that don't want to give rights to people from other countries, that don't want to give rights to babies born from parents from other countries, born here in the US. They want those rights taken away. And so it's very important to be aware. And if you don't agree with it, you don't agree with it, so be it. But at least be aware of what, and think about what you might be voting against, who you might be voting in or out. That's all.
Which is an extremely important thing to remember, because here's the thing too. So I'm going to give an example. In France, they have a high community of Indians that have been there for probably 70 years, right? Now there's grandchildren who are not French citizens because there's no such thing as birthright citizenship. Now you're having an issue with people working. Now you're having, I don't want to give them my money. They need to go work. Well, how do they go work if they're not citizens? If you don't give them the rights to do that.
And I don't want to pay them a living wage. Well, that's
no.
Bad. That's the US.
Oh, for sure not. So, and this is one of the things that I think that, yes, reproductive crisis that's happening in Venezuela will eventually affect America because it's under the sphere of influence, which means that people looking for refuge, as they start going north, where do you think that they're going to end up? Where there's birthright citizenship, where there's access to work, access to healthcare, access to help. If you think people are looking to come here to get a free handout, there's always some. But I can tell you, but listen, there's always some. I have to say, listen, there's Americans that want to be here and don't want to work.
Guess what? There are people that have Irish descent, Italian descent. There's people of Swedish people that don't want to work. So I mean, it's a human thing. But
It's a human thing. I
majority of
don't
people
work.
want to work. Majority of
I
people.
want
I
I
don't
want to
want
be
to work
retired
either.
and relaxed.
Exactly. But I want to also have money in my pocket,
So
and I'm
here
not willing
goes
to
my
be a drug dealer. So there you go.
and there you go. But here's the thing though. So and this is what I'm saying with my entire diatribe is you give people access to actually working, they're gonna fucking work.
Mhm.
You don't want to pay for them, let them work. You don't want, oh, they come here. And I love the people that say to me, oh, they get here and they get all free medical, all free education. Last time I checked, even public school ain't free. And good luck. Half these public schools, okay.
How many stories do we see where some 8-year-old is raising money for his or her classmates to have lunch? Those are the most heartbreaking stories, and they're right
Like
here
y'all
in the
can,
U.S. because the parent couldn't afford, the monthly fee, and so here
lunch.
comes some little kid with a lemonade stand.
And you don't, but and this is the thing is like a kid, like homie, a kid, you gonna be mad at a kid for being hungry?
But it all comes down to what you said initially. It's all about family planning, and we are we won the lotto, so we have the capability of making those kind of choices for our lives. Unfortunately, there are countries like Venezuela and India and other places around the world that just they don't make it easy.
So, and this is the thing, I'm trying to make it so that people have a personal stake in this conversation, because here's the thing though, in America we constantly put reproductive rights in in the political form. And what bothers me the most is that whenever we talk about reproductive rights, people bring in religion and they bring in the fact that abortion or not abortion. It's a bigger
Like that's
conversation.
it. That's all it is, right?
It's
Just
a
stop
and
and
Planned
go.
Parenthood. I shouldn't have to. My dollars shouldn't go to free abortions. Okay, but
I
then what are
want
you
to.
gonna?
I want to know. I want to have a conversation with those people that are like pro-life. And by the way, pro-choice people are also pro-life, but we can talk about that another day. But I would like
Think
to have a conversation with the pro-lifers who say that abortion is wrong, this, that, and the other, and then the same token have no problem with George Floyd.
well,
I'm just saying, Black lives don't matter really, but that's
but you know what?
another topic for another day.
So but here's the thing on top of it. So you didn't choose to have this baby, but you took a right. You're making the conversation of me choosing to have a child. You're taking that on, putting that on the table. So you're trying to take my right away. Okay. Have maybe the question should be: you're only allowed to go hunting and own 3 guns. You're only allowed to go hunting 1 day a month, and you can only own 3 guns. Should that be part of the conversation then, so we can actually talk about what really matters? Because family planning is, yeah, right?
Yeah, I feel like like you feel like something went in your eye, but
Oh yeah. But family planning is a bigger
the
conversation than
cold got
just
my eye.
abortion or not abortion.
Right.
Whether your dollars go to Planned Parenthood, which is a medical clinic. Yes, they do perform abortions, but it is also a medical clinic. Do you know your GYN, men, and people who do not go to a GYN? Do you know you cannot get a sexual panel, meaning like an STD panel at most of your gynecology appointments? You have to go to Planned Parenthood for that. Did you know that? Did you know that most obstetric and gynecology clinics do not perform HIV screenings? You have to go to Planned Parenthood for that. Did you know that? But you want to shut down Planned Parenthood, right?
It's so much more than like when I think of Planned Parenthood. I mean, I went there like once or twice when I didn't have insurance, and it wasn't for an abortion. It's just basic gynecological needs as a
Yeah,
woman because I didn't have medical and I couldn't afford it. And they were like, "We do it for free."
it's on a sliding scale. You pay what you can afford.
I
The
think
thing
it
that
was like
kills me,
$10.
But the thing that kills me is just like people don't realize when you go to your gynecologist, you cannot get a sexually transmitted disease panel. Most gynecologists, private doctors who take private insurance, do not perform these tests. They do not perform an AIDS HIV test.
They do everything but.
They do everything but, and half the time they don't even do.
Well, my doctor, she's good about it, but she asked me the personal questions. She's like, "Well, let me just take a." She tried to ease her way in.
Yeah.
Like, how many partners you've been with the last year, and by whatever, and then she's like, "How about we just take a quick swab?"
Let's swab.
She's like, "Do you?" But then she'll be like, Do I need to take an HIV test?" Like, she always asks me that,
Yeah.
and I'm like, "No, I always, Anyway, that's neither.
But here's the thing though. So no, but here's the thing though. So I've been married for 15 years.
So was that
I
story about you, the
what?
husband? Was that story about you? You should
What?
clear this up real quick.
No, no, this is what I'm gonna say. So I've
No,
been married.
wait. Let me just say, because you probably don't realize it. When you were giving examples, you gave an example of a married couple of 15 years with 3 kids.
Oh no, I'm reading something from the New York
Right,
Times. I was reading
that's
it
what I'm
verbatim from the
saying.
New
Try
York
to
Times.
clear that up. The example was not you. It's like, how
Oh
people
yeah,
always
no,
make those jokes like, I have a
yeah.
friend who was like, it's like
Your
you.
friend is you. No, I was reading from the New York Times, and it
Okay.
says like it gives you snapshots, and I was reading it from there.
You're like,
No,
this
so
couple been married 15 years. They have 3 kids and they're trying to decide about a sitter who could stay with. I'm like,
hold on.
anyway, go
And that
ahead.
friend. No, but what I mean to say is I've been married for 15 years. I've had private medical and dental insurance for 15 years, over 15 years, but I'm talking about my family plan. I've been to a gynecologist, and under my private medical insurance, not one gynecology in a private medical, when I have great medical benefits, not one of them does the STD AIDS panel. Why is that important? Because it's important. Because it is. Because it's a healthcare issue. It's
Right,
important.
right,
Period.
right.
I've been to large clinics where it's obstetrics and gynecology, and they still do not.
Have you asked your doctor?
I've asked every single doctor, and they say we cannot perform that here because, and they claim, they go into this diatribe that it's an insurance issue and things like that. You have to go to Planned Parenthood for that panel.
See, that's because my doctor is, I don't know what the answer would be, but she's always offered it.
Mm-hmm.
I've just never, I got it one time, like early, in my 20s. I was like,
Mm-hmm.
maybe you should take one of those tests. But like, as I've gotten older, like, I protect myself, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But she's always made the offer when she felt like it was necessary. But I don't
Yeah.
know if that offer would then be followed up with, okay, I'm going to make you an appointment somewhere else.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. We don't.
I
It's
think
just,
it depends
what they're.
on the group you belong to sometimes, and what, you find out
Yeah.
from your insurance. It's important to read your, what is it, the
The
benefits?
benefits package,
Yeah, to really see what's covered and what's not. Like, really take a look at
which
that.
just an FYI to people at addendum part 8. So your healthcare package comes from your human resources department. It doesn't come from the provider. So like, let's say you have, I don't know, Emblem Health, right? Your benefits package, yes, is provided by Emblem Health, but it's what your company bought. So if there's something that you feel that is important in your benefits, medical and dental package, you need to go to your HR department and let them know. So when they're buying that policy, they know what to look for. So because what they're going to do is look for the package that has the most cost benefit to them.
Well, I don't.
FYI.
It's true, but I look based because my job doesn't offer healthcare, and so I use the Affordable Care Act, and I kind of like do my own little. It's not like an extensive research, but I know what I need from me. So
Right, right.
that's important too. Like you said, if you get your medical through your HR department, to really pay attention and maybe have a conversation. I used to work for a company where they would come in. They'd schedule one day where the whole office was there, and HR would do a complete rundown of the medical. Like, I wonder if they do that anymore. Do these companies do? Like, do they even care?
Probably not. Who knows? I hope they do. But it's just, but I, you know what? It again, these conversations lead to so many other things, and this is why I think it's just so important to understand a crisis like this is only a few years away from hitting someone's front door. When you have limited access to family planning, you know, that really bleeds into other things because so you had another there's another clip. Hold on. And it's uh in each country, the family planning myths most prevalent at the individual and community levels were that people who use contraceptives end up with health problems. Contraceptives are dangerous to women's health, and contraceptives can harm your womb. On average, women in Nigeria and Kenya believe 2.7 and 4.6 out of 8 selected myths, respectively, and women in Senegal believe 2.6 out of 7. Women's individual level beliefs in myths was negatively associated with their modern contraceptive use in all 3 countries. In Nigeria, the women's community level myths variable was positively associated with modern contraceptive use, whereas the men's community level myth variables were negatively associated with use. Neither community level variables was associated with modern contraceptive use in Kenya or Senegal. Now, this is not something that's only regulated to the continent of Africa. This is everywhere. Right. I don't know how many times, like you and I grew up in I'm not going to say one of like the wildest, 50s, 60s, 70s, but I don't know what these dudes or women or everybody be thinking like, oh, if you're on birth control for too long, then you can't have a baby. Trying to think of other things, stupid ass things I've heard in my lifetime.
Too many.
Yeah, exactly. Too many to count. So now you're trying to have just a decent, healthy, safe relationship. And listen, I don't know how many people, not that many people are allergic to latex. Calm it down.
Oh my God.
You know what I mean?
You know how many times I've heard that?
Yep. Oh, look at that. I'm allergic to
Not
dying.
That many. I haven't heard that many.
I'm allergic to dying. But it's like, but you know what I mean? It's just one of those things that these you have all these things associated to, when we look at what family planning means to an individual, it's beyond simple conversations. It's not like, and I know I keep saying this, but this is where I want people's heads to start turning to. It's not just abortion, non-abortion. It's not a religion, no religion. It's bigger. It's a bigger conversation. The burden of childcare falls mainly on women. The burden of contraception usually falls on women. There's statistics that I'm not going to get into because I can't find them because now my thumbnails are off. There's statistics, there's levels to this shit, as I always like to say. When you have the burden held on one person, it can't be just it can't be just politics. And I know I say this, I know you're gonna kill me when I say this, and I'm not one, I hate talking about politics, but you know what, these representatives don't look like me. We don't have the same philosophies. So for you to put barriers on my needs, I have a problem. And as somebody who hates to talk about politics, I vote even in my local, and I think local is more important than the big ones, but always obviously the big ones are important too. But you've got to have these conversations. And what's happening in Venezuela is not going to stay in Venezuela. It's going to bleed into neighboring countries. and it's going to become something that doesn't just affect people in another country that you can just sleep and idly look at.
Yep.
It's bigger than that. I wrote this statistic, and it made me think, because motherhood is not the be all end all in humanity, but it affects. The reason I bring this up is because it affects so many different little things. There's tentacles to this statistic. Venezuelan maternal death rate surged 65% from 2015 to 2016. And then the government stopped releasing data. They take the data, but they stop releasing it. From 2015 to 2016, maternal death rate rose to 65%. So what do you think is happening to these kids that they leave behind?
Yeah, I don't know. It's crazy. It's crazy. Like
Exactly.
you said, it's not, Venezuela is not an anomaly. That stuff is gonna, it festers. And people will
festers.
see what's working there and be like, okay, well, that seems to be working there. Seems like they've grown their whatever commodity it might be there by
Mhm.
doing that. So why don't we just
So I think about do you remember in the 80s they always had these like what did they call them? The big concerts, and they would televise, like not a telethon, but like to raise money for AIDS medication, AIDS
Yeah.
HIV medication for the continent of Africa.
Yeah, like Live Aid.
Live Aid, yes, Live Aid, stuff like that. And there was a crisis of family planning, a heavy crisis of family planning, and it's more than just like access. We're talking about horrific things that were happening. But and I'm not saying it hasn't been resolved. None of this has been resolved. But the things that affect one eventually affects a lot more than just the one. And I just hope that we continue the conversation, because these conversations are going to continue to happen in the United States, especially every time we have elections, because I feel like it usually comes up. And let's just hope that when we say family planning, that definition becomes less broad, right? People tend to see tunnel vision when it comes to that word, but I really feel like it really needs to be honed in on actually what we mean by that, and what the definition is, and
Right.
what that means for each of us.
Right. In and outside of our communities.
Yeah.
Mhm.
All right, I'm sorry, I'm like rambling today.
Okay.
Huh?
I said that's okay, it's fine.
Oh, my bad.
I'm passionate.
I don't know about that. Do you want to add to that?
No. Are you about to do your thing? I'll play it.
I'm like, what the hell? Like that little meme.
You want me
You
to
got
do
it?
Yeah, I got
Yeah.
it.
Marissa's Musings.
Under the Merriam-Webster's dictionary, family planning means a program to regulate the number and spacing of children in a family through the practice of contraception or other methods of birth control. Birth control, especially when carried out by monogamous heterosexual relationships. Funny how that's in there. Limiting the number of children born. So I know in our political landscape, we like to only think of male-female relationships, heterosexual relationships, man, woman, man's rights, women listen. I like to believe that my dad was a feminist. He taught me a lot of amazing things. And as such, I hope that we continue to have conversations to really understand and define what our reproductive rights are, what they should continue to be. And we call to the carpet those that believe that they have a stake in what our reproductive rights are and what our family planning definition really is.
Holla.
In conclusion,
The end.
the end. I mean, you remember when you were in 3rd grade, you would end your essays, the end?
Yes. Those are the days.
I bring up my dad in this diatribe because he was very
musing.
Oh, and my musing. The reason being is because I think of him often in many different ways, because he taught me a lot of things, even if it was unintentional. His relationship with my mother, from my perspective, was extremely rocky, where he was a nightclub owner when they met. So he was out and about trying to be a Rolling Stone. And when she said she was with child, he was like, "Oh, I can't have no babies, I'm sterile." And when that didn't work, he got married and had another baby. So we had very open and honest conversations on what his definition of what women should and shouldn't do and what men should and shouldn't do. And the only time I ever heard him say to me, "That's not something a woman should do," was when I said to him at one point in my life, "Oh, I want to go into the army." And I think the only reason I said it is because every moment that he had with my brother, that was my brother's, that was his plan. There was no other plan. You go to college because the army's going to pay for it with the GI Bill. My Lieutenant Colonel Awesome is retired and happy. So he did go. But I remember he said that to me. And I remember thinking to myself, how could a man say that? How could you put barriers? And obviously he knew things that I didn't, whether that meant what he saw. You know, he was a chemical specialist in Vietnam. Whatever he saw, he felt like wasn't a place for me to see. Whatever. But he also was very vocal in our moments together, because when I was with him, I was his world. Obviously, when I wasn't around, what kind of kid do I got? He was very vocal in making sure that I understood my capacity, meaning the only person that's going to tell you no is you, right? But not only that, my charge in life, and my charge was, make sure that you understand that there is nothing and no one that is going to give you everything you want but you. You're in charge of your own happiness. And no is just a word. Find a different way. So thinking of him and him making sure that I didn't have the ideology that you're a woman, you have to get married, you have to have kids, you have to stay home, you have to make sure you can cook, you have to make sure you can clean. Him making sure that those definitions were never in his vernacular when it came to me is very important to who I am as a feminist and how I raise my kids. But not only that, how I present myself to the world and what I feel is important as far as my values. In conclusion, I don't fucking know. I just say that because he's, you know, he was so many different things, but he always taught me that I have a voice, use your voice. But there's the burdens that you take for your life are put on by you and no one else. And just make sure that you always give yourself opportunities and you capitalize on them. But I could go on to 20 different things of all the things that he taught me that he didn't mean to teach me.
Right.
But those, but
father's supposed to do. Supposed to do. But I think he did that. I think half the lessons he taught me were face to face, but the other half was when he wasn't around, when I was deadbeat. But let's not go.
Let's end on a high note.
Right.
It was great
Very
when he was around.
okay.
Well, homie, I love you.
Ditto.
Where can they catch us?
The Yep Yeah Yes podcast. Yep Yeah Yes 18. Email us yepyayes2@gmail. Check us out on YouTube, the Yep Yeah Yes podcast. Marissa, you have something to say about what you're holding in your hand for the people that are not watching?
I'm holding the Yep Yeah Yes podcast face masks. Give a donation. Give us your address so we can send them to you.
Yeah, the people that have already donated, they'll be in the mail tomorrow. I've been lackluster with giving Marissa, addresses and stuff. So
Oh, all right.
why you say it like that?
I thought they weren't giving us their addresses.
Yeah, they were. I just wasn't giving them to you.
All right.
Oh, I
Y'all
got
gonna get your mask. You're gonna get your mask. Don't worry.
you get them, whatever. And if when you get the mask, take a screenshot, send it to us, post it on our page, whatever.
Tag me, boo.
Thank you
Tag me.
for supporting us. Appreciate it. But yeah, they can catch us everywhere. Podcasts, you get your podcasts, full videos on YouTube, and we also have TikTok now, and we gotta make a TikTok. I mean, we old asses, but we're gonna figure it out.
Oh Lord.
I want to be Debbie Gibson.
I got a side part in skinny jeans, homie. I don't know
What?
if I'm allowed on that one.
You got a side part in skinny jeans? It doesn't look that side to me. It looks more center.
Skinny jeans.
I didn't need to see all that. It's too much.
Skinny jeans. My ankles is hurting. Oh my
Shout
God.
out to New York Knicks. Shout out.
Oh, is that what you're wearing?
No, I'm wearing New York Giants.
That's football, right?
Yeah, with my New York Giants mug. Oh, that's
And they're not playing right now, right?
given to me by Marissa's son, who I often think of as a nephew. No blood relation, but family is what you make of it. We planned it that way. Family planning at its best. The show has gone
Family planning.
over, but thank y'all for riding with us to the end. We appreciate it.
My bad. I just kept rambling.
No,
Oh
that's
well.
good. You had content. You had something to say. You got a story to tell.
I don't know.
And,
All right. People is like, shut up, Marissa. Okay.
All right.
Right.
Catch y'all next time. And remember, donate, 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 donate. Thank y'all. Peace now.
Bye.